right.
Get your microphone like way over.
Yeah, good point. All right. Yeah, that's better, right?
Yeah, now it's like I turn my volume down now.
Yeah.
Thought I was seeing things. I was like way over in the corner.
Yeah. What's good type shit? How you doing, bro? What's happening?
That is the most Twitter username I have ever. Like, if there's going to be a Twitter username, that would be it.
What's going on, everybody?
I feel like because I don't have my mic in front of me right now. I feel like I'm feels naked, you know. It's like,
yeah, what happened? Where is it?
Oh
yeah, I know where it is. Yeah,
yeah.
Right. Forgot I was using it today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I mean, I got the one on top of the camera, so I mean, it still picks it up fine, but it's like, I don't know.
So anybody just joining, we go live every Wednesday for Wholesale Wednesday, sourcing brands, identifying winning brands. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the chat, and we will answer all the Amazon game. Bringing the heat Wednesdays, 7:00.
What's up, Ben? How's it going, man? I know you guys do wholesale, but do you know how many people who have done, or know many people who have done A to A, so Amazon to Amazon, and do you have any opinions on it?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know some people who do A to A. It is a business model in and of itself. I don't think it's the most sustainable business model. I think it's a little risky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we always talk about building in sustainability, and we're after the income that's like safe, consistent, reliable, and quite frankly, that is everything but
SCRI.
Yeah, SCRI. So that stands for safe, consistent, and reliable income. It's a little acronym I coined. But basically, that's what our focus is, to try to obtain that in selling on Amazon, because all reselling models are sort of rooted in instability. So the most stable reselling model you can get is brand direct wholesale, because you are in fact 100% authorized by the brand. Maybe you have exclusive agreement with the brand, even better, right? And so I think A to A can be a stepping stone for beginners to learn Amazon logistics, but definitely where you want to end up is a model like wholesale.
Yeah, similar to like arbitrage, right? When you're starting, like it might be, I mean, it wouldn't be my preference for a model to learn Amazon, but I think it is a model to learn Amazon, but at the end of the day, like you want to transition into something eventually, and that you're not going to have to worry about when you're going to find your next product. Like that's what it comes down to. Replenishables, consistency. It is just not that for us.
Yeah, you could scale so much bigger, so much faster by having consistent and replenishable inventory, because all you need to do is place an order, every month, just replenish that inventory. It's nice and easy. Misha is joining in on Instagram. What's going on, guys?
What's up, bud?
Looking good and sharp as always. Share some gems, that we will. Misha is crushing it. I see the guy shipping full truckloads. So yeah.
But he acts like he doesn't know. He stays under the radar and acts like he doesn't know what he's talking about. I'll be like, Misha, you're killing it. He's like, I'm just a guy, I'm just, like, no, dude, you're killing it. He's like, I just give himself more credit.
Good to have you in here. Yep. So we got another question here coming in from Darkness on YouTube. First brand call, got the phone hung up in my face when I mentioned Amazon, called back and then mentioned a wholesale account, and he nicely directed me to fill out an application.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Actually, quite literally, what was it, a couple minutes ago, There was a tweet that we have that was, what does it say exactly? Yeah, it's like brand email subject line, their company name, your company name. No response. Business opportunity, strategic e-commerce partner, no response. Their company name, brand challenges on Amazon, no response. It's just like you have to approach it different ways, right? And sometimes you don't get a response from, especially saying like Amazon presence or anything related to Amazon, but just approaching it, wording it in a different way, it warrants a response. It's funny. Same exact thing, just different phrasing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about, is cutting through the rejection and being
Yeah.
persistent.
Yeah, that phone, hanging up in your face type of deal. I feel like hopefully if you do it enough, you get numb to it after a while. Like I feel like we're just so numb to it at this point. It's like, hang up. All right, we'll call you back. Put it on the calendar for next week.
Yeah.
All right. Question coming in here off of Twitter from Steve. Where's the best place to find Amazon sellers for sale? So more particularly sellers selling their own brand. So I'm assuming you're talking about like acquisition. Is that what we're talking about here, as far as like either acquiring another Amazon business or acquiring a brand as an Amazon business? If you can kind of clarify that, before we answer that, just clarify that question a little more, Brad, unless you understand it.
That's what it sounds like, because he said more particularly sellers selling their own brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said yes. Yep.
Okay. Where's the best place to find, there are way more sellers than there are buyers out there. So it's like these sellers, like there's so many sellers that want to sell their businesses. I don't honestly know exactly where to go to, explore that market. I know there's massive like aggregator companies and private equity firms, like specifically within the Amazon space, that acquire different brands. So I would start there with your research and look at different aggregator companies in the space, see what kinds of brands they're buying. A really good way, well, is, if you're doing product research on Amazon anyway, and like with us, for instance, we work directly with brands. We have exclusive contracts in place with brands. We have strong relationships with owners. And, we've brought up the conversation of, them like, potentially looking to exit the company. So I always approach it from the angle of building a relationship with them, and then having a open and honest relationship so that you can open up that conversation. Is this something you've ever considered? Right. That's personal experience. Right.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you're in a stronger position in a brand direct wholesale model, though, because you're in constant contact with these brands. I was going to say it's one of those like kind of boots on the ground thing where, like, if you're seeing opportunities with either a brand owner that's looking to retire maybe, or is getting older or something, or you have, a reference to somebody else in the industry, like there's a lot of opportunity, I think, just working brand direct as well for that. Cause we've talked about acquisitions and, things of that nature.
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the relationships, when it comes to that, and just building a relationship with the brand. That's why, like I always say, like, brand direct wholesale is a great stepping stone to, like, starting your own brand or acquiring another brand, because like, you have strong connections with these brands. You build good and strong relationships. You're already selling their products exclusively on Amazon. Maybe, Amazon makes up 50% of their total sales, right? That's a considerable percentage. So already 50% of the sales happening on their gross is running through you on Amazon. So like, what a better position to be in to position yourself, to potentially acquire a portion of their company. Like, nobody's saying you need to buy their business in 100% outright. And quite frankly, a lot of business owners who have been operating their business for years might not be receptive to that right away. So it's all about opening the conversation and understanding what are their goals. I would recommend reading the book. It's called Go Do Deals by Jeremy Harbour. It's all about um, building relationships with the focus of acquiring companies. And it covers great information in that. So if this is an area that you're interested in, I would recommend reading that book. Yeah, I could talk all night about this topic. So let's jump to the next one here. Hi, Brad. Been watching the YouTubes for a year. Absolute beast. Thank you. Appreciate that, brother. And then we got a question here I want to ask. You said that we have to provide value to the brand, and I completely understand it can be promoting it on social channels, but how do we optimize Amazon listings?
Yeah, I mean, we take a look at, first of all, I want to touch on that in 2 different points, right? Like, I want to touch on it as what the value is, and then I want to touch on it as far as your question for optimizing Amazon listings. You always want to think of value in general as value is perceived value to the owner, right? So if you're dealing with a brand owner who has absolutely no interest in optimizing Amazon listings and doesn't care about it, doesn't want it, you pitch it, they really don't care, then don't do it, right? If they find ads valuable, run ads. Like, it all depends. There's things objectively that are going to increase the sales of the listing, obviously, but you want to provide value based on what the brand owner thinks is valuable, because that's what's going to grow and strengthen the relationship. When it comes to optimizing Amazon listings, we have our breakdown of what an optimized listing is. And optimized isn't just a buzzword. It actually is something that looks to increase sales, right? So we have our title, our bullet points, our keywords, which are everything from the copywriting to the back end to whatever it is, right? In search, we have our images, we have our A+ content, and then we have our brand store. So working through all those, if you're not a graphic designer, outsource it. There's tons of people on freelance websites that'll do that stuff for you. You don't need to know how to do everything, but those are kind of the 4 components of what you would consider to be an optimized listing, with the goal of increasing sales, and position it as you are looking at the bigger vision of the brand, because a lot of times these brand owners aren't going to understand what an optimized listing is, right? If you just say that, or A+ content, position it in the perspective of, like, what is this going to do for the overall vision of the brand?
Yep.
These brand owners really have no idea how important the Amazon presence is to their distributors and other factors of the brand. It's really more than just Amazon presence. 100%. I mean, and we talk about that a lot with brands on the phone, right?
Yeah. No. A lot of brands will not understand the importance of their Amazon presence. It affects every single avenue of their product sales, and how their products and brand is represented in those different avenues. It affects brick and mortar stores. It affects other distribution channels. Affects the entire ecosystem. If you have a bad Amazon presence, it does not translate well to other areas. That being said, there are just some people that you can't get through to them, and sometimes it really doesn't. It really truly doesn't matter to them, and it really truly doesn't make a difference in their business. Right? Businesses like that do 90% of their business in like commercial or B2B. We find that a lot, is that, like, there's some brands that just, Amazon is such like a sliver that it's like their entire focus is on B2B, and they could give a crap what's going on D2C. Yep. Get them to
Invested
understand.
interest.
So how to promote the social media presence of a brand, build that trust, since we haven't worked with any e-com brand before and don't know if our marketing strategy will get them conversations.
Yeah, actually, this is kind of a cool thing that I want to touch on, just because we're currently working on some stuff for you guys as far as modules and different things. And I was working on one the other day, and it had to do with creating a website for, a wholesale business. And one of the things that you would love is a testimonial from a brand, right? So that's kind of what this question is saying. Like, if we haven't worked with any brands before, like, how do we know if what we do works? How do we get the brand to believe us? And if you haven't worked with a brand yet and have results, you can basically, instead of a testimonial, you can put something along the lines of like an intention statement, right? So if you create a website or you do something like that, you can direct brands. Once you start to work with anyone, whether you've gotten them results or not, you can direct them to a website where instead of maybe a testimonial, you'll say, I've been working with XYZ brand for the last 3 months, and we are going to be upholding the integrity by doing this, by doing this, by doing this. And we're looking to grow sales from XYZ to XYZ, right? If you've never worked with a brand, that is, I think, a better position than having nothing. Kind of an intention statement on the website, as opposed to, and put it in the format of like testimonials. I think that's a really good tip that, nobody really talks about, that if you're starting working with brands, I think it's something to give you a little bit more credibility and legitimacy.
Yeah.
I also found a brand who's not even managing their own presence on Amazon, and they said it's outside of their budget. What a great opportunity. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes brands are just confused. Like many times brands are confused. Like there's so many agencies out there and companies that, will charge brands for these different things that are very simple and easy to accomplish. Like we take that exact angle in our business, in that like we kind of vilify the agency a little bit. Um, because the reality is that the agency doesn't have skin in the game. They don't have a vested interest. And a lot of what the agency is going to do, like, is just very simple. And a lot of these agencies outsource it offshore. So they're literally just arbitraging the, the labor offshore with what they're charging the brand and the people. Like I've seen this so many times. It's like there's a sales guy that gets the brand all hyped up, and the brand, closes them on emotion, and then they get locked into like a $2,500 monthly retainer. And then
Poof, they're gone.
he's gone. They never hear from this guy again, and they're stuck dealing with somebody who barely speaks English. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm saying that it's just not really it's not a model that they don't have any skin in the game, right? Yeah. Jacob, what is going on? Yeah, Jacob's freaking killing it, man. I can't get over it.
He abbreviated both "what's up" and "gang" like they were long words to begin with.
That's because he's so busy working on his business, he doesn't even have time to type.
Doesn't have time to type. He's got no time.
Yeah. All right, we're approaching 7:30. Why don't we jump into a little bit of sourcing here?
Yeah, and if you guys got any other questions, make it laugh.
Any questions? Through this, drop them in the chat.
I'm excited about this live. I feel like we're gonna find a solid product. Jacob also saying my calls are like, and I gotta clarify on this if this is individual calls, right? My calls are like 1:20 to 1:40 on average. So I just want to kind of touch on that, right? I don't know if you're talking about individual calling list. All right, fair. So if you have we talk about doing, I don't know, let's say 50 calls a week, 100 calls a week, 150 calls a week, whatever it might be. if you have one call that lasts 2 hours and it is worth like that 2 hour call, like you get off the phone and you're like, that was the best call of my life. You don't need to make 100 more calls that week necessarily. Like if that's the end of the week, like don't feel like you need to do that just because we're looking for like the output. Like the output is what matters. And so if you're getting the output from that call, then great. Like you don't need to, reach out to, don't feel like you didn't do anything basically.
Yeah.
Also, John in here is asking, did we talk about anything with Amazon Lit? No, we didn't. I mean, I think we can touch on that, or at least I'll touch on that if you want to.
Can you see my screen here?
Yeah, I can see Smart Scout stuff. Yeah. So I'll touch on that with the Amazon Lit. So Eric and Sebastian are friends of ours, and they're really good guys. And I was in Eric's live yesterday, just like defending him on some stuff, right? I think the reality is that the people that were talking a bunch of shit, a lot of them don't really know what they're talking about, right? And I think a lot more people should focus on their own businesses rather than be so concerned with somebody else's. Like whatever they decided to do, like that's their decision. I think that Brad and I have talked about it in general, and I think there's a certain point at which wholesale, logistically, you can wind up running laps because there's so much leverage and products, and when you're dealing with distributors, there's more risk. Like it makes sense to me, as to why they did what they did at their time in their life. But like, I don't doubt that it was an extremely calculated decision that they made. And anyone that's saying that, well, now they're not qualified to teach is out of their mind, because they could probably run laps around all those people if they started from scratch again. And I just think that's ridiculous that somebody says that. Arguably, they have more ability now to teach because they have less time spending in the business. So
yeah, exactly.
It's like
the opposite is just completely ignorant.
Yeah, and they're like I said, they're friends of ours, and I think they got to do what they got to do. Like Amazon is a pivot game, and they decided to pivot out of it, and whatever. But that being said, like there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity. I don't think anyone should look at that.
But it's not even pivoting out of it. It's literally just leaning in a different direction. Like there's so many models of selling of this space. Like they have proprietary software in their business. Like they have, so many different elements to their company. It's like anybody saying the nonsense is just fucking ignorant. Like it's just very simple.
The drama, especially like I don't know, whoever's in here on Twitter, like Twitter fam over there was going a little crazy. I was like, out of all the platforms, everybody on Twitter was just going nuts over it, and I think more people should be focused on their own business.
Yeah, they probably don't even really run much of a business if they're not focused.
Well, because it's like, like I saw somebody post something about like them getting sued by Amazon, and they clipped like a headline, and the reality was that they sued Amazon for something in the past, and nobody did any research on it. It's just like, half the people are keyboard warriors and don't know what they're talking about. So there's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I want to set these filters real quick. If you could help me out here, just making sure I got everything. So we got monthly revenue. We want at least 2 sellers. And by the way, anybody just joining here or watching this for the first time, we source in Smart Scout and we source in Keep a Product Finder. Kind of toggling back between the two each week, but right now we're in Smart Scout. We just go to the brands tab and we set a filter, which is a very basic filter. So we set a small to medium sized brand range, which roughly this revenue kind of qualifies for that. and we said at least 2 Amazon sellers on the listing, right? And then we want dominant seller country, United States, right? And then anything else here? Is
Pretty
there
much.
an Amazon in stock rate?
Yeah. I mean, we can, put a max on that if we want. I mean, it's hard to get like a low end. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like 10, 15, 20. Like what's what's that sweet spot? I mean, I feel like it's really all case by case.
Yeah. I think we're good here.
Yeah.
So we go ahead and hit apply, close that filter. And so then, like we do, we're basically just kind of looking to see a couple things. We want to see, is the product moving considerable enough volume for us to come in and take some, profits right away? What's the product sell price? And is the brand well represented on Amazon, or are they poorly represented on Amazon? And that is indicated by the brand score. And if you're in Keep a Product Finder, like we did last week, you're actually able to filter out listings if they have A+ brand content or not. So that's a good way to determine if a brand is well represented or not on Amazon.
Yeah. And while you're scrolling there too, in the chat here says, I feel like if we keep sourcing mostly around the same filters, sometimes it feels like I'll run out of brands. I would highly recommend doing storefront stalking. You will never run out of brands. If you're feeling that way, start exploring more criteria on storefront stalking. It's just Smart Scout is an organized database. Storefront stalking is complete chaos that you have to somehow manage to organize, right? So,
and you can just run that storefront through Keep a Product Finder. And then it'll give you the entire store, because Amazon limits the storefront to 20 pages. So you can't manually source through the store anymore. You have to run the storefront ID through Keep a Product Finder, which we did last week, and we'll do next week. So tune in next week, and we'll go through some storefronts. Yeah, so basically I'm kind of just looking here. I don't know if anything catches your eye, just let me know.
I haven't seen anything yet that I'm double bubble. I used to shoot out playing baseball as a kid.
Is that the string?
Bubble gum. Yeah, I think it is. Or no, that's
Big League Chew.
Big League Chew. Yeah. Now double bubble is the one in like the roll, I think.
Yeah.
That sugar gum is just like absolutely terrible for you. Like talk about cavities, like it's crazy.
When I was young, it was like I tried to see how much of the Big League Chew I could get into my mouth at one time.
Was this like a challenge, or was this just
it was with like my buddies from when I was young, and
you're like when I was like 25.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I'm stuffing Big League Chew in my mouth.
Yeah, everyone's got their thing,
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're looking here too. Not gonna lie, seeing a lot of slippage on my follow-ups. Thoughts on getting it together on that end using Google Sheets. I would invest in the CRM, and you can reach out to me, and I'll show you how to get that set up.
You got a recommendation?
What's that reminder? Google Calendar.
You recommend a CRM?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on what you're using for your like the rest of your systems. I personally use NetHunt. I just like how it integrates, but you can use anything from high level to whatever. The important thing is not necessarily what CRM you use, it's how you set it up. So,
yeah.
Are you saying see who sells a product on a brand listing, source them, see the listing of the brand? Yeah, so basically storefront stalking / keep a product finder, product sourcing is just you're going through, you're copying what works, right? So like you're going through a storefront, you're seeing if that storefront has the criteria of a product that you would want in your store, and then you are just contacting them based on those companies. So what's that urban accents right there? Is there still, I mean, you look at these numbers, like there's still, this is 130K a month in revenue. I mean, this is huge.
Yeah. And you're still going to get big brands like, WWE and stuff. So just being on the lookout for like household names and avoiding those.
Husky, a lot of big ones in there.
Yeah, I'm going to see if we can grab one more and then we'll take a look at everything.
Yeah, Andy's in there. Yeah, there's some big ones. Do you guys have any 7-figure accounts? Yes, we do. Why not just call up brands after the SC filter? There's only like 1,000 leads. The SC filter. Oh, the SC filter? What is that? Am I like tripping on that?
SE filter?
C. Seller central filter. John, clarify what you mean on the seller count. Sellers.
All right. So let's look at some stuff.
Oh, sorry, the typo. Sorry, Smart Scout. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to. We filter it on the basis of like, there's not every brand is worth reaching out to be honest. Got to make that like intuitive decision on a like kind of like case by case.
Yeah. So,
Brad, why didn't you click on the Appian listing tire repair kit? Score was low. Just wondering what your thought process was on that in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, I'm kind of just scrolling through. I'm not looking at every name. So if there was a listing that you might have saw, I could have skipped over opportunity just because I'm scrolling. Appian. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like I was looking at that and avoiding it for a certain reason. Oh, here you go. This is the one you're talking about. Let's see. Okay, so this is like one of those type commercial products. Yeah, I mean their listings completely atrocious, right? Yeah. But this is actually not a bad. This might be a good opportunity, because it's hitting on everything, right? So that was a good find. Whoever pointed that out. It hits on. It's got a medium to high average sell price, $76. It's selling almost 1,000 units a month, and it's got a terrible listing. So, ding, 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 we got a winner, right? But this one is like you got to go into this understanding that they're probably commercial. They probably do a lot of B2B. They might not know or might not care about their presence on Amazon. It's just, I would go into it with those things in mind.
Yep.
So this is an example of a brand that we would contact.
Yeah. Let's go back to some of the other ones that you found though.
Yeah. This looks like the brand is selling directly and they have a very well optimized listing.
Yeah. So it's an immediate no.
Yeah. They got they got everything, so.
Right. So kind of going back to that other question about like, why don't we just contact all the brands, right? Like this, you'd get pretty much nowhere with them. So.
Yeah. So it looks like we got a scale here. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, pretty solid.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a medium average sell price, $50, so that's pretty good. It's selling 1,000 units plus. Again, that checks the box, and it's got a terrible listing. So look at that picture. It's a good picture.
Good one. Oh, they did it. Didn't they just cropped the first picture, no? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it
Just
looks like.
zoomed in. That's funny.
Yeah. So another good example of a brand that we would contact, and literally at this point we would just search up the brand's website, find the contact number, paste it into our sheet, and boom, now you got a lead. Do the same thing, and it's just a rinse and repeat process.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Nice. Good one too.
I was just wondering if this Golden State is the same. Let's check here. So I'm going to open up this store. The first thing that caught my eye was that this says Golden Rewards. This says Golden State. So they have 28 sellers on the listing, though. So that is a problem.
Yeah, even if it is.
This may or may not be the brand themselves.
I mean, even if it is with 20, unless they're, so then the next thing that we would probably check is, are they priced substantially lower than everybody else?
Doesn't look like it. There's some other contenders here that are within range.
Right. Interesting to take a look. Just going to answer a question here too. Generating e-commerce sales through social platforms is quite challenging. Mentioned the importance of having a website and showcasing XYZ results to build trust. What if we're unable to deliver those results with our first brand? It'll impact the brand in terms of time, money, etc. I want to be able to help clients and deliver the results. How can I ensure that? By the way, it's 4 a.m. Sorry for the messy message. You're typing better than I do at 2 p.m. So don't apologize. Yeah, I mean, you have to be able to execute on whatever you promise, right? So oftentimes, like, you can find a brand that maybe necessarily isn't looking for all these crazy results, and you can beta test them to see if you can get those results. Like, you have to be confident in your ability, and confidence just comes through being very well versed in what you do. So it's kind of almost like a fake it till you make it mentality, but at the same time, like, you have to be able to deliver. So
yeah. So I kept a couple of these up, right? So I'm looking at this one, and this is like not screaming opportunity at me, but I would still add them to the list, right? We just don't know if this is the brand or not. Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Even if they are, there might still be opportunity because they have a ton of sellers on their listing, which is a problem.
Right. What would you say, at what level does a ton of sellers become actually a good thing as opposed to a bad thing?
A good thing for who?
For us reaching out to the brand.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that anything over 15 sellers starts to create a serious problem for the brand. Anything over like 15 to 20 sellers starts to really have a serious problem for the brand. So I would say that's when it starts to become a good thing for us, because we're like, all right, we can go into this and like lean into that, and why like doing that is not the best approach, and just kind of educating them. So I would say it's probably somewhere in that range, that 15 to 20.
Yeah.
And above.
Question in here too. Says, I'm sure you can tell a good story about this. Are you guys looking at buy box rotation? Remember that process, what that was like back when we used to do that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you what we would do is, like, back in the day when, our account was much smaller and we didn't get the buy box like we do now, we would quite literally, oh God, look at this listing. Sellers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a big problem with distribution. But back in the day, we would go to the data tab here, and then we would go to buy box statistics and analyze this. But we would also get like the stock and like determine if people were like selling through inventory, and if the buy box is rotating like that.
Yeah, I feel like you have
the test
swings, though. Like, I feel like it wasn't an accurate method just on the basis of there's swings in stock.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's like transfer time and stuff like that. So I mean, it tells kind of who's getting it, but like, I feel like you're also looking at a snapshot in time. I feel like this wasn't effective, but it is what it is.
I agree. That whole thing started once like COVID, right around in 2020. Amazon just like totally kicked around their buy box algorithm. Previously, like, you could literally buy a product And
So easy.
there could be 20 sellers on a listing, and you knew everybody was getting an equal share of that buy box. It was like amazing.
Yeah. And
Like
if you're
how
just a newer seller, you've never experienced that, and it's like, it was crazy. Like, but I feel like you almost didn't even realize it until it changed. And you're like, wow, this, it's good and a bad thing though. Cause if you get stuck in the buy box, it's good. Right.
yeah. And it's like a catch-22 with the buy box, and that like you get the buy box, you're selling the inventory, you get more of the buy box, you send in more inventory, you get more of the buy box. It's like just,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I would contact this brand. It's, not screaming opportunity at me. And then this I left up because this is an example of something I would not probably contact. Maybe on solely on the basis of just getting an account, but it looks like they might have an exclusive seller here. But their listing is very well optimized, right? They have great imagery. They don't have A+ content, but I would want to go into it knowing like, hey, it looks like they got some pretty good stuff going on here.
Yeah. Again, I think we're the shot to reach out to, but it depends like how much you're going to push, right?
Yeah.
Pricing kind of a little bit all over the place.
Interesting. Yeah,
Looks like there was a stock out too, September.
Yeah, sales substantially picked up on it. It was just interesting.
Right there, September, October. Last year, there was a stock out. To the left more. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the price was just.
Oh, no, there wasn't. It was just a buyback suppression.
Yeah. So that we found example 1, example 2, example 3. I didn't even look at this one, but it's not really moving much. You got 50 units here, 300 units here is okay, but $13 is not. And they got 600. So I might go I would click on this just to see what's going on. Yeah, I mean, this isn't terrible, but again, like this is not something I'm going to jump on and make money because there's 24 sellers on the listing.
Yeah.
Like I got to go into this. What was that?
A lot of merchant fulfilled, a lot of potential arbitrage sellers on this one.
Yeah. I would want to go into this and, lean into either the brand exclusivity or trying to get them to rein it back in on Amazon. Right.
Yeah.
So
most definitely. Just want to touch on another question here. It says, I got 40 brands I have to contact. Started my business 9 days ago. How much do you contact a week? How much should I? Do you want to touch on that as far as like what we do versus what you should do as a beginner?
Yeah. I mean, when you're a beginner, you want to contact as many brands as you can. And when I say contact, you want to really try to focus most of that on phone calls. That's because you need to put in the reps on the phone. You need to fine tune your script. You need to understand what the common pain points are and how to overcome them. You need to get rejected and you need to not know what to say and then learn from one call to the next. And the more frequent you engage in that process, the faster you're going to gain the skills that you need to actually pitch brands. So like the first, 3 months might be you're just shooting from the hip and kind of hoping things, you don't have all the Amazon knowledge, and that's fine. But like by joining these lives, like hopefully watching videos that we're putting out, like you start to understand, what these value propositions are. And then I find that the best Amazon sellers that do wholesale and specifically brand direct wholesale are the ones that fine tune have their own craft and their own delivery mechanism. Right. So like, and that's a personalized element of this business model in that like the way I contact brands might not be exactly the way Brandon talks to brands and the way, you guys talk to brands might be different from the way we talk to brands. So at the end of the day, it's about like fine tuning your own craft, and there's nothing wrong with being creative about it because that's where the personality shows.
I was going to say, I had a 15-minute conversation. I called a brand today to follow up on something, but I had probably a 15-minute conversation. This is a brand that's in the pipeline that's a 7-figure brand. And, as opposed to like the hard sell of like, value and this and that, we had quite literally a conversation about like weightlifting and like sports for a solid, 10, 12 minutes. And then I was like, oh, by the way, there's this other thing I was going to talk to you about, you know what I mean? And like, that's always kind of been more so like my approach, but like, that's not to say that it's the best one or that, you know, like create your own approach. Like Brad, like exactly like you said, you know, you'll develop it over time.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. So buybacks rotation, very big. Yeah. You know, Jacob's got a meeting with an outside sales group for a new brand direct account.
We've
Tongue
had
emoji.
quite a few guys that we've had quite a few guys like that we know that have been getting some in-person meetings as of late, and you know it's super exciting because like talk about pushing you outside your comfort zone. Like if you don't want to get on the phone, how do you feel when you're sitting across from the brand owner at the coffee shop and you can't look up the information? Like it's like throwing the baby bird out of the nest and hoping it flies. It's like you're either gonna hit the ground or you're gonna figure it out. So really good way to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, no, it's good. Jacob, you're good with people, absolutely. We know that because we know you, but sometimes people they hide in the shadows behind their computer. Sometimes people do that and they don't they're afraid to get beyond an email, no less like to get on a call, no less to like go in person. So in-person meetings are not always necessary, but I think they when the time is right, they can really solidify a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. You just got to know when they're appropriate.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be flying out to meet a brand on the first call.
They didn't answer my email, so I flew out. They didn't answer
Yeah,
the contact form. They didn't answer the contact form, so I flew out to the facility.
yeah, it's like
Moves 50 units a month,
yeah. It's very much so emotional intelligence and knowing when to do what. Like a lot of times I compare it to dating. It's kind of just you got to read the room and know when to, when it's appropriate to push a little bit harder and when to kind of rein it back in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, closing in here on 8 o'clock. If there's any last minute questions, pop them in. But we go live every Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Just found 3 to 4 brands that we would actually contact ourselves. That took about 20 minutes, if that, 15, 20 minutes. And so when you perpetuate that process and continue to do it over and over again, you learn from your mistakes. You understand, like, you look at a listing and be like, this is screaming at me, right? This listing is screaming at me. Why? Because it's hitting on all those different factors that we talked about: volume, sell price, not
Yep.
well represented. Um, and so, Tim, glad you're jumping in because it's not, we're not even, this isn't even a live stream without Tim at this point, but yeah, listening in the background, this has been quite informative. Hit differently. Awesome. Glad to have you in here.
I mean, you guys, make these live streams, right? Like we couldn't do these without you. If it wasn't for you, Brad and I would be talking to each other, right? So it's like
Yeah, we
super cool,
appreciate it.
interactive and coming in here and being part of the community because that's really what it is at the end of the day. Is a community that we want you guys all to be a part of, and without hinting at anything, we have some community stuff that you guys are really going to enjoy coming soon. So. Jacob, I'm gonna screenshot this and use this in court for when something happens in your future. This is gonna be part of the testimonial.
Hello at the coffee shop. All right. Well, 8 o'clock now. Time to get going. But it's been great as always, and we'll see you next week. Peace out.
See you next week.